Trevor, our manager from at the time, he was at the Zona location. Is that right? He was just a young guy.
Yes, he was at the Zona. Yep.
3-4 years ago, something like that.
Even longer, man.
He also worked at Olathe back then.
Yeah, I've been knowing Trevor for about 5 years. Since roughly since I moved to Kansas City.
And were you training at the time when you met him?
I was not. Just working out. I used to train a lot at Genesis and Ward Parkway.
And this is at the time for our listeners, you were lifting weights. You weren't training. Training clients at the time. You were just training yourself.
Yep, just training myself. I say training, but I was just lifting 7 days a week.
Sure,
and we know that's not smart.
Yeah.
Who needs recovery?
Right.
Just doing it old school. Different body part every day.
Every day, man. So yeah, man, I was just lifting weights around that time. Didn't really have a purpose, intentional training, and now that I look back, it's just completely different as far as like styles of training. Back to what you said as far as like recovery, and just knowing what to do as far as like your training style.
What I've seen a ton from your content is mobility, and like movement patterns. And, I think that when you first get into personal training, a lot of people they're either the personal trainer that's looking to crush people, right? See how hard they can push them, or they're overly obsessed with like pushing up their numbers quickly. And it is cool to see like a movement towards like, no, we're going to get more flexible. We're going to have better movement patterns. And I think that, doing that, it gives people better quality of life, which is ultimately what people are after, is a better quality of life. Yep. And do you need to be stronger? Absolutely. Is there times where you need to get your ass kicked? Absolutely. But mobility is a huge part in that.
Yeah. Mobility was introduced to me, kind of backstory. So when I was in KCPD, when I was a cop, I got hit by a drunk driver in the car. And that
while you were working?
While I was working.
Wow.
So you were driving a patrol car?
We were just parked, just on a call. It was 2020 of Thanksgiving.
Wow.
And I worked the overnight shift. So going into the next day, and just on a random call, it was about 2 a.m, around the S curve around Broadway, if you know that, familiar with that area. So 31st and Broadway, headed north. Mm-hmm. And just happened to look over in the passenger side of my car, and all I could say is, oh, and then boom.
You're allowed to say it if you want.
Okay, cool. I don't want to say it.
You're cool. No, appreciate you trying.
Yeah. So, man, and it destroyed my whole left leg, whiplash. My C1 through C4 was destroyed. And mind you, I didn't know, this is before I entered into what training looks like. And so I pretty much rehabbed my whole left leg by myself, got on YouTube, started to learn like what is mobility, what's movement, how do you kind of recover from things like that if you can. I didn't have to go to the doctors as far as like anything was broke, and I was very grateful for that, but I was in a lot of pain. And back to your question, people walk around with a lot of pain on their daily jobs or being at home, stay-at-home moms, fathers, doesn't matter, sports players. And we ignored a lot, but we know what that leads to further injury. And that was the initial to, okay, maybe I need to start focusing on more of stretching and feeling better. And then you find out quickly that your lifts are a lot better too, because you actually can get full range of motion and blood flow to your muscles, which the primary reason for working out is to grow muscles for most people. Outside of what you said is feeling better. So
yeah, we talked about this a little bit before we got on the pod, and I just want to bring it up because a lot of people I think look at people that do fitness for a living when they first meet them and they tell themselves, and it's unfortunate, but it's just, I think it's a way to protect themselves, protect their own ego most of the time, and it's just saying like, oh, that person's they've always looked like that. Fitness has always come easy for them. They don't know what it's like to be me. It's harder for me, and I know that's not your story, and so I'd really like for you to share for our listeners just kind of where you started and what that looks like. I know Luke's, I think, got some photos queued up of just some back when you were just lifting on the daily.
Yep. And that was, so if you go to the first one, when I was first holding my daughter, very vulnerable time in my life. Complete honesty, I was basically an alcoholic. And I'm not saying like I had to go to classes or anything, but I was drinking every night when wasn't making smart choices. And that picture was the full change. I looked at her when she was first born. I had to really make a change quickly. So still on the same trajectory as far as like going to the gym on a daily basis, hitting the Stairmaster 30 minutes a day, just to prove to myself that I can make a manly change for my family. And that wasn't even just the beginning of just training clients. That was to prove to myself that you can put your mind to something, you can achieve it. That was the initial start. And then you go to 2018, lost some weight, still finding myself. And what I decided to do was just go cold turkey. Didn't drink for 2 years. Just another milestone. What can you put your brain to achieve? And as I started to dial down, I started becoming more consistent, learning about the gym and stuff. And then when fast forward to with the journey as far as TNT Fitness started, 2021 was when I decided to do my first bodybuilding show. Coach Kiani, that was my first coach out the gate. So I was doing a lot of things at once. I was law enforcement, taught myself wholesale real estate out of a cop car. I was training for free. I was studying and doing a show. So I slept about like 3 hours a night for like 4 or 5 months. Just that mental push, challenging myself to say, if you really want to make a change, you can do it with hard work.
What was the deal in 2017? Were you was the stress of police work one of the issues that you were having, or what was causing you to drink every night like that?
So 2017, I actually was working with at-risk juveniles. So that was my first job in Kansas City as far as helping locked up juveniles find themselves. And I find that ironic because I was going through my own at home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm trying to find myself, I had the opportunity to use my mistakes and my downfalls to go teach youth as they were leaving from a locked up facility, just to show them once again that just because your past was your past doesn't mean your future can be any better. And from there, it really was just bad habits. Honestly, I didn't have anybody to stop and tell me, you really shouldn't be drinking like that. Young, just graduated college, was eager to work, make some kind of money, and it was just a coping mechanism. It wasn't a good one.
Sometimes the monotony of life sets in too, where you're just kind of like, when you're going through college, there's always like the next thing. There's the next like summer break. There's the next, winter break. Yep. And then you get a real job and you're like, oh, there is nothing to look forward to anymore.
Yeah. You don't have that
this
break.
Is life.
Yeah, you don't have that. And I moved here by myself, so I didn't have anybody. I was just working. And then at that time, I also went to work for 24-hour fitness at the time. That was like a small introduction to what you call gymming or going to the gym, still focus on just lifting heavier every day. Didn't have a full structure. And then I start to figure out, okay, I really need to put the bottle down and put energy elsewhere. And that was the gym. And that's what started my fitness journey personally. And then you go through the years of different jobs. So at-risk juveniles to KCPD with law enforcement. And then in law enforcement, around 2020 after the protest, going to 2021, that's when God spoke to me and said, it's time to do something different. And at that time, I didn't know what that was. And then wholesale real estate was introduced to me, and I figured out that you can, produce and go make your own money the right way with proper systems. And I really learned sales from real estate, not training, and how to connect with people personally and figure out what they need, and then you solve their problem. And then you push that same mindset into training. And then I made a decision April 2021. I just told the wife I'm not going back to work for KCPD anymore. And I remember my sergeant looked at me and he said, "You'll be back." And I looked at him and I said, "Respectfully, sir, I will not be back because God gave me something to pursue and a purpose to really go help people in the health and wellness world."
There's a whole lot to talk about right there. You know what I mean? I don't want to glaze over any of that. And you start working at KCPD. You go through a really hellacious time in our country as far as 2020 and protests and so forth. initially sparked with George Floyd, and then I think the snowball effect, kept happening from there, and started. And it was just like up, we didn't know what was up and what was down, what was left and what was right at that time. And as someone who is on the other side of it, where you're actually being the one at the protest and the other side of things, what made you feel like this is no longer, worth pursuing as far as KCPD goes? I guess what expectation wasn't met for you in that, where you're like, this is no longer for me? And was it even the job, or was it something outside of the job that made you want to pursue something else?
I'll have to say both. It's not a bad job at all. I actually enjoyed it. I just, when you're in something and you're giving it your all and you get that feeling of it's something missing, and along the lines of I just got a lot of injuries, and I played ball my whole life, really haven't had too many broken bones or concussions. And while I was in law enforcement, in short 3 years, I got hit by a drunk driver. I had 2 or 3 concussions. So after that, I'm like, I don't need any more signs that show that this isn't necessarily for me. And I look at it more of a spiritual thing, that God spoke to me and said, it's time to find something else. And then that's when the tail end of 2020, that wholesale real estate was introduced to me prior to even entering into any kind of training as far as like personal training goes. So I would say both, just realizing that's not something I wanted to continue to do, where I see legacy. And that's where I start to look around the corner and say, okay, Durias, in 15 to 20 years, where do you see yourself, and what is something that you like to have set up for your kids? And all that in one, I just made up my mind and this decision to go on a journey, man, to prove to myself again that, okay, you can do this. You can go build a platform for my family to stand on and others through your own trials and tribulations.
Let's get into TNT Fitness, man. You transition from doing, not just wholesale real estate. You're done with KCPD. You tell your wife, hey, I'm doing something else. Yeah. Tell us about just TNT Fitness and where what is the problem that you needed to solve there? You know what I mean? Where's the void in the fitness industry that you felt like, TNT Fitness was needed? Yeah.
TNT Fitness, man, that's just for my kids, man. It's Tatum and Titan. That's where the name established from, for those that ask, what is TNT? And at the end of the day, what sparked it was, you go back to 2017, my daughter's firstborn. My little man arrived in 2021, another pivotal year when I started training in April. He was born in July. So my wife was pregnant at the time, April 2021. And when I looked at her and I told her I wasn't going back to work, she looked at me pretty crazy and said, so what are we going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to become a personal trainer. So while I was doing my show and being coached, Ronnie Hill over at the Tough Club introduced me to Jabari, and I was honored to walk in with open arms to start training there. As soon as I left KCPD, Jabari opened the door for me to come train at the gym and start a legacy over there as far as what training looks like. And I found out that I enjoy training due to the fact that you can really pull and help each individual where they're at. Not everyone, like you said earlier, is blessed to have a great physique, a great start. But I realized the loophole is really in relationships, to kind of get back to your question. Learn to establish great relationships and a rapport with people, and you genuinely show them that you care, they will invest in you due to that being the big reason. Of course, learning how to properly train and do movements is a part of it, but I really put it into building relationships as I was going along and seeing that's how you keep retention after a while. And people realize you care about them and what they do on a daily basis versus coming in for an hour and just blasting them. Versus first question I ask my clients when they walk in, how was your day? How you feeling? And you can just tell they sometimes may break down right then and there in front of you. It may become what I call a counseling session, or I'm just here for them. Physically, you cannot get into a workout if your mind isn't there. You know, mentality first for me, mindset first, then physical. And then you put in the mobility and helping people feel better on a daily basis, because we all endure some kind of stress. So from April 2021, you know, just started building my book of business, talking to people, you know, using social platforms, and just using the gift that God gave me to help others progress in life and feel better. And then we fast forward to I did another show, and I was with Christina Reed. And so we went into
Crazy Fit.
Yes. Really big shout out to her, for everything she taught me as well.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
Yeah, a major part of training, and a different style of training. Very, very smart, very educated, where I was able to take everything from meeting Jabari, learning training at the Tough Club, and then getting better along with my own craft and implementing things that I feel would have worked better for my book of business, and then meeting Christina. And then you just lump all that together. I was able to build a strong platform for training where you can focus on strength training, functional training, bodybuilding, and or mobility. Just because I was blessed to have, between Jabari, Kiani, Christina, I really give a major shout out to them from my beginning process of training from 21 to 2022 when I got my pro card at Worlds in October.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
I appreciate you, champ.
You're, you know, at one point, I remember Jabari, when we had him on our podcast, he was talking through they had like 5 or 6 different pros on staff at the time, and all the different federations. There was a WBFF pro, an IPB pro, IBE pro, or IPE pro. It was just wild, man. You guys had some studs all there at the same time.
Yeah, it was an experience, man. At times when you look back after, you can just slow things down. I always like to give flowers first, just because it's not given enough to people to understand that in the processes, people do play a major part of your journey. And after a while, you know, you spread your wings, man. You learn to grow and go through trials and tribulations and make mistakes, bump your head. And from there, you continue to grow your journey and how you would like business to be ran, and how the training styles. That's what I love about health and wellness as overall. It's so many different ways you can go down to be successful. You know, everybody has their different training styles. And back to earlier, I found it through mobility first and then going to strength training. Of course, if I meet a client that's super mobile and flexible, we're not going to waste our time on doing it. But at the end of the day, 90% of America deals with some kind of hip pain, back pain, shoulder pain. It's a problem. It needs to be fixed and focused on. And it's not nothing fancy. It's not anything that you just want to jump up and down about, but it's a need if we want to see the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. And I do have a few older clients that's 50 and above, and we focus on those things, and they thank me for it just because they know it's like their lifeline right now.
I'll tell you what, man, I've been doing, you know, activities or sports my whole life.
Yeah.
I've always been active to some degree. And so with that being said, mobility is something I've personally always struggled with. Like we're talking like the sit and reach when you're in like elementary school.
Yeah.
I couldn't even like register, bro.
Yeah.
I couldn't even like touch the wood.
Yeah.
One year I got this like 20 centimeter. Remember how it was like in centimeters? It wasn't in inches, was it?
Yeah. But
And like it's the only thing ever that was like on the metric system. But I wore like swishy pants that like when you raise up the knees, they like stayed.
Yeah.
And so I cheated and bent my knees just to try to get, you know, because it was always the one event that like screwed me over.
Yeah.
And I got like a 20 centimeter jump. But long story short, I feel like I've been in a lot of different fitness classes. I've been with a lot of different trainers.
Yeah.
And it never ceases to amaze me how quickly, and it's like every trainer, it's not like I'm not trying to call anybody out. It's just like when they go through the stretching in the part of the class, it is the most combed over, glazed over. It doesn't have nearly the amount of intention as the rest of the training. It doesn't have nearly the amount of intention as the rest of the class. Yeah. It seems like something they're just kind of flying through. Half the class at like some of the gym classes I go to now, people will leave right after the class. They won't stop and stretch. And the coach isn't like, hey guys, it's important to me that we all stay and stretch. And I want you to count the full 30 seconds before we move on to the next one. They're moving on much quicker than 30 seconds, even though the screen says do it for 30 seconds. Yeah. We're doing it for 15 or 20 and then switching. Yeah. And so I think because, I mean, you're subconsciously telling everybody it's not that important when that happens, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just refreshing to hear you say it. And then more importantly, it's just more refreshing to hear that you implement that to such a degree, because I am somebody who has really bad mobility issues, and it's something that I personally obviously have to work on and put my own energy and effort into.
Yeah.
But I think in the back of my subconscious, I've just always thought in my head, like, it's clearly not that important, even though it's for sure very important to me. But it just seems like the thing that most people that I look to as the influencer, as the expert, they don't put as much energy and effort into it.
And I mean, sometimes also it is time. I understand it's time consuming, but
cut the other part short. Don't cut the. I mean,
yep. I was just gonna say, just take the 5 minutes. Take the 5 minutes in the beginning. I call it get to the feel good stage. I firmly believe, even with my current physique, I haven't been on stage in 2 years, but since I have implemented things like mobility and taking care of my body, I'm able to sustainably keep a good physique, walk around under 10% body fat, and just keep my body feeling better. So when I go to lift, I'm ready to go. So since I've been doing mobility so much, now it's to the point where I don't have to overstress it, but I still do a few movements depending on what I'm doing that day to make sure my spine is ready to go. I'm opening my lats up, especially on the back day. So it's like, it really only takes a few minutes, but I think people are either scared to ask or don't want to look silly, because I have had clients, bigger guys, walk away from training with me because we weren't just going straight to the bench. We're doing certain things, and they felt embarrassed. Like, they told me, I feel embarrassed doing this because I can't move. Mm-hmm. And as you know, as men, we don't like to be put on the spotlight and not feel like we're not king of the jungle.
Yeah, kind of an ego bruise there.
Yeah, it's an ego bruise, but at the end of the day, it's something you just can't bypass. If that's your problem, you got to deal with it, or you're going to deal with, getting injured doing a big lift, and then the doctor's going to tell you, we need to stretch more. You need to do the same thing I'm pretty sure somebody told them. They just didn't want to continue to do. So I put that top priority as far as training any day, no matter what you're doing, running, Olympic lifting. At the end of the day, your muscles need to be able to receive what you're looking to do. Otherwise, you'll start feeling a lot of different things in your back. That's the common thing I hear. Oh, my back hurts. RDLs, my back hurts. Squats, my back hurt. Everything is primarily spinal or back related for the most part. And then, as you know, it's all connected with your hips. And then now you're just completely destroyed because you don't want to take the time to fix one thing that will lead to 3 or 4 different injuries.
It sets off like a chain reaction.
Yep, the kinetic chain. Yes,
I had a bunch of mobility problems that from competing in powerlifting for a long time, and for me it was fixing my ankles. My ankle mobility was so bad that my knees couldn't track right when I was squatting deep. Yeah. And what would happen is, because my knees couldn't track right, it'd make my lower back round. Yep. So my lower back was screwed up, my knees were screwed up, but it all was caused from, basically immobility in my calves and my hips. Yeah. Or in my ankles. And once I fixed that, it was like, wow, everything became so much better.
So much better.
And so it is crazy that, but you were talking, king of the jungle stuff. It's like, even Jeff, at times where I've tried to get him into like Olympic lifting, he's like, I don't want to do that because, it's hard to get down in a full body squat. And I'm like, hey man, you got to start somewhere. And
mobility is, it's just such a struggle. Like we were talking about earlier, we talked about how I couldn't even like register on the sit and reach earlier, dude. And, but no, like, dude, it's like, I'm doing Orange Theory now, for example, versus like doing a CrossFit class and doing like, CrossFit, it's like it just puts me in such an uncomfortable position so fast because my front rack is worthless. Like completely, I'm doing the classic like hands crossed. And getting down, my ankle mobility also terrible. And it's like, yeah, I know I need to get better at those things for sure. Like,
well, I have to arguably say the front rack position is probably one of the hardest ones. Even if you start establishing a lot of mobility from the ankles and the hips, being able to rotate and push up. I mean, if you have big lats, overly tight lats, man, I mean, that's a breakthrough to continue to keep doing that, to get to that. And I haven't got to that stage yet, and I know that's on my to-do list as far as I really need to focus, hone in on it. and just work on it. I do have
it is like it took me 2 years to get to that point. But if you're not doing like push jerks or something along, like if you're not doing explosive movements and you're doing more like hypertrophy stuff, it becomes less important to do it. There's the strongest guys in the world are doing strict press and they have no front rack. So there is the argument to that. But there are certain like movements, athletic movements, that it is better if you can get into a front rack.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Honestly, with the front rack thing, for me, the thing that I noticed the most, what you were talking about, lats, rolling out your lats, and then, actually just holding weight, forcing yourself to hold weight there that's heavy, just kind of forces you into that position over time. And then eventually you can start squatting deep, in a front rack. And, it's just one of those things where it takes time and it takes, resiliency over a long period of time and consistency over time.
Yeah.
Most things in fitness.
Yeah. And just become humble, man, just to say it's okay that I have things to work on.
Yeah.
Back to the King Kong of the jungle. We all have things we can get better at. And that's the beauty of this journey, man. And as a trainer and for myself, you got to know where you're at. I do what call self-checks. You got to know what things you really need to work on and hone in on, or take a back seat on just for a little bit to get back to what you were doing. Even for me, like the stage, my pro card, it will expire in October, but I'm not ready to go back on stage. I'm not going to force it, just to go up there and say I did a show. I'm okay, I did achieve and get my pro card, and it lasted for 2 years, but that doesn't make me who I am as a trainer. It is cool to get, medals and win, and one day I'll get back up there, but if the season of life doesn't call for it, I'm not going to force myself to go on there and feed my ego.
Yeah. Yep.
To this point in your life, do you feel like you've proven all you needed to prove to yourself when it comes to bodybuilding?
That's a good question. I honestly say, for me, I've proven to myself that I can do it. Now, as far as physique, I have a lot of work to do as far as that stage life. But I think initially it was just to prove to myself that I can win a pro show and get a pro card. And from there, after I won my pro card, man, life just started happening. I'm just like, well, that's being aware. How many people do you know try to go on stage and unfortunately they get divorces, or just life starts to happen and they choose a stage over what's really priority, just because it is it's a selfish sport, and it's okay to be like that as long as the season fits. And that's something that I had to come to realization with. If I really want to build a brand and an organization that people can stand on and go help other trainers learn how to train, I can't put myself first, because your sessions turn into 2-3 hour sessions and I'm training clients back to back. So I don't have the time to give to somebody that was me 3 years ago that wants to become a great trainer and learn how to create a sustainable business through personal training. And if you put things like, shows and stuff like that first, it can become a great area. Where people, how it is, nobody's talking to you, you lose friends, you lose family, because they don't understand that process. And I wasn't willing to give that up this last go around, because we have a lot of big things coming up, and I want to really narrow in on those goals, because the goal is freedom. The goal is freedom to have my time to go help others build their training platform, and just to teach. I like to be a teacher and a coach.
We saw you just started growing. I mean, you just hired on a trainer, did you not?
I did. So we're working on it. It's in the process. So pretty much what I'm looking to do going forward is I established a 12-week mastermind program for trainers looking to learn how to train. And what I like about it is in 3 short years, I learned quickly how to do so. And there's people eager right now that want to get into training, but they don't have anybody going back to grab them and say, hey, let's grab a coffee, let's grab lunch on me, and let's talk about how I can best serve you instead of taking myself out the picture, So once again, not the selfish way of, I know I can grow TNT Fitness. I know I can continue to be a great trainer, and that's the plan. But to continue my education and help others learn how to train and make a good amount of money and feed their families, that will make me feel better than going on stage and having an 8-pack.
That's the big thing is, what I was going to say is, people who, you can't have a healthy relationship with competing unless you have a healthy relationship with your own self-worth. And it's like you are deriving self-worth out of and purpose out of so many other things that you don't feel like you have to rush back to the stage. But you talk to people all the time that stage is like that's all they're getting it from. That's all they're getting that self-worth from, that validation. And so it's like they do it back to back to back to back to back. And if you tell them to chill, like, hey man, maybe take a year to grow. If you're wanting to improve on the, the things that judges are saying, and it's like you're telling them to quit life basically, because that is the entirety of their life.
Well, you're saying that, learn how to sit with yourself, learn how to, validate yourself, self-soothe before seeking it outside of yourself. And I think that's a journey, not a destination, something that you need to remind yourself all the time.
Yep. As we know, it's a marathon, and it takes a village. That's what I feel lacks in this current day and age with fitness. Everything's about self. I've worked this hard to build this, and my assumption is people don't want to feel like you're going to bypass them just because they gave you a few gems or you're helping, and then they slowly will cut you off or just kind of act weird. And I kind of want to break that trajectory up and change the game of that to welcome people in the room if they want to walk in and be open and ready to receive and learn how to properly build a fitness business, how to keep yourself in the game. Because it's enough.
Sorry, finish, please.
It's enough clients out here, man.
Scarcity mindset versus you're living in abundance. And I'm just asking you, that's something that is just so difficult. I mean, it's one of the most difficult, kind of, it's tough. I mean, dude, I'm in year 17 of doing this, and it's one of the most disheartening parts of this business. We try genuinely so hard to pour into our community. And, the first time we had a guest on the podcast, for example, right, and we heard someone through the grapevine was unhappy that we had someone else on the podcast and not them. It just like, man, it really made me sit back and think, why do we do this? It's like, no matter what we do, we're making somebody unhappy. And it took a lot of growing up for me to finally just recognize, like, I need to be the advice or give the advice or take the advice that I'd give myself in these situations. It's like, dude, you're not in a situation where you need to be responsible for somebody else's emotional reaction. Like they couldn't see the situation past themselves. They're upset because we were telling them by putting somebody else on the podcast that they're not special. And it's like, we think they're special too. We just can only have one guest on at a time.
It's all about,
they just don't see it that way sometimes, And so all I'm getting at is that it's very admirable that you have such a abundance mindset and you're looking for helping as many people as possible, as far as not just the client, but specifically helping more trainers get their foot in the door and learn the ropes of how to build the business, because it's hard to take your love for fitness and turn it into a way of making a living. And that is really the basis of when we started the podcast. It was trying to find as many people as possible who's been in the game a long time, who's been able to establish themselves, and it's no longer a hobby. It's no longer something that they're doing on the side. It's their full-time living. And so often it's very difficult to find the answers on how to make that happen, and then have the resilience and the patience and able to build themselves to that point. And so one, we got to say we're proud of you for getting to that point.
I appreciate it.
It's been a long ass journey, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's just all about timing, God's timing, as you saw me being emotional earlier.
And trusting that.
Yeah, it's you asked the wife, I didn't sleep last night. I just all day, just like, wow. Thank you, God, for allowing me this opportunity, just following you guys' journey back from Trevor to getting a chance to meet you one-on-one and talk. And it's all coming together with the whole community-based thing we've been talking about the whole time. And sometimes it can become a shock, man, when you're just working hard and grinding, and you sometimes don't feel like you're moving, but you are. And then you get the phone call and you prepared yourself for days like this. I don't think I ever thought I would be on the podcast, but I watch it. I love it. And then here I find myself today having the opportunity in front of you guys to tell the world my story, and how hard it really is. Not the Instagram, not the being famous, but raw, authentic, that it's a marathon and it takes time. It takes patience. It takes resilience. It takes a village, a community, as long as you're willing to join and walk without any kind of envy, without any kind of jealousy, without any weird feelings. You know, we're headed in one direction. At the end of the day, just to become free. I know we all would love to be and do what we want to do, but it just takes time.
Can you tell a story of a time? What sticks out to you, Durias, in your time of doing this, where life, for the lack of a better phrase here, served you a shit sandwich, and it was one of the toughest, one of the more tough things that you've had to overcome, and then just how did you handle it?
Well, recently, I debated on even talking about it, man, because it is a sensitive subject. But from my original start from being a trainer, I wouldn't say life handed me a shit sandwich, but it handed me, okay, you have to make a big boy decision, for whatever your reasoning is. And when I recently left the Tough Club last year at the end of November, it wasn't that anybody did anything wrong to me. It was, okay, this is not where I see fit for the future of TNT Fitness. That's a big decision to make when you have ties to someone that you really respect, and you're like, hey man, thank you for this opportunity. I gotta fly my wings elsewhere and see what life brings. And I think when this is my first time even speaking out about it, it's like you go back and it was a life-changing decision. And now it helps you grow. It makes you more stronger. You become stronger. You become more resilient. You can prove to yourself that you can continue to do and follow your dreams as long as God tells you to. And I put God in that because sometimes people can make decisions off emotions. And it was not an emotional decision. It was a calculated decision on what's going to come in the next few years. I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't really see myself necessarily being in a gym setting forever, but it is a start. And I think you go back from KCPD, making that fake jump, to learning how to become a trainer, to, okay, switching gyms, which no trainers really want to do, but whatever your reasons are, you just got to follow it and keep progressing forward and never look back, and continue to be positive about it. Continue to flourish, continue to build others with you, because that's really the end goal, is to learn, establish yourself in a market or a job or a career, and you go grab 5 other people to teach and do the same thing, and you become a disciple. Discipleship, that's what discipleship is. You learn, you grow. I know this is the right door to go down. I walked it, and I just want to help you if you're ready to receive. And if you're not, it's okay. It's no ill will or anything like that. It's just all about being mature about decision making and what's best for your family and yourself.
Man, some real wisdom there. I hope people are listening in on that.
How do you make decisions? Do you do a pros and cons? Do you have like best practices? Like what's your, when you're making a big life decision, because you just went through 3 or 4 big life decisions that you've made. And I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast, they're early, they're early on in their journey as far as like how old they are with fitness. And a lot of them are trying to make a decision on what does the rest of my life look like. And it sounds like you have a pretty good way of deciphering that. What's the way that you go about it?
You hit it right. You hit it right on the nose. Pros and cons, pen and paper. You're writing left and right. Here's where I am. Here's opportunity. Does it make sense from scheduling, from how much, from location, just breaking the whole process down. Does it make sense to make this next jump or move? And if it doesn't, then you have to go back to being patient. Even if you are at a place in life or wherever you're at and you feel like you're not where you want to be, that's okay. A lot of us don't like to sit in that, but it's a season though. As long as you're making small steps towards where you want to be and who you want to become, doesn't matter how long it takes, but you do have to be willing to sit down with yourself and be honest and put the mirror to face. I think a lot of us struggle with that, putting mirror to face. What is the core issue? Do I see fit elsewhere, or where I'm at is good? And maybe I could be the problem. But once again, it has to be.
People don't like that, dude. People don't want to admit that.
Yeah, and that's the
the self-awareness part of it, though, where did you find that? As in, did you bring other people into this decision to help you with understanding who you are as a person, especially as you're, recovering from being an alcoholic and showing up for yourself every day, now showing up for yourself, for your family, for your clients, and now employees, if you will. So you've got a lot more people to show up for. And as you're doing that, how do you, I guess, shake off the self-doubt, shake off those limiting beliefs that can happen to you along the way? Because again, that's not a destination either.
Yeah. I have to give a lot of credit just to my life story, as far as I didn't have a choice. We all have choices, but I know I personally didn't have a choice to make a change for my daughter first. That was my initial why. And then my son came along, and you don't have room for doubt. I know I have a wife and 2 kids to take care of that depend on me daily, based off my decisions. Even back to your question, including family, what makes sense? You don't have time to doubt yourself. I mean, you can, but as you know, that doesn't get you anywhere. You're even more in your head. And I know the mental awareness, the mental health aspect of decision making can wear on you. If you make a bad decision, that wears on you. If you make a good decision, you feel good about yourself. And the good decision is, once again, taking steps towards what you write down, what goals you wrote down, and are you following those things? I really think goal setting helps out a lot. Back to your question as well. Here is month 1, in 3 months, where I want to be, in 9 months, where I want to be, in 2 years, where I want to be. And I can go back to a handful of notebooks completely full about all these dreams and goals, and it's just walking it down. Going back to, my mentor said, go back to 3 years ago and see what you wrote down. Are you following those things? And if you're not, then you'll find yourself keep writing, and then you're trying to chase the rabbit in the room, but doesn't mean it's the right rabbit though. You got to continue to follow and stick to the plan.
Live in alignment with those goals.
And live in alignment. If you're not living in alignment, you idolize and you start to follow the wrong people and the wrong things just because it's gold, it doesn't glitter. So.
What are the non-negotiables you have in a day? Because you strike me as a person who's very intentional with, like, basically the way that you set up your life, you set up your family structure, you set up your days. Some people have got to make my bed. Mm-hmm. Do you have any of those non-negotiables that you do every single day?
The people that depend on me continue to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have a choice not to show up. That's my clients, that's my family, that's my kids, that's myself.
And to get more specific, what does show up look like to you?
Well, in the morning, so I started with scheduling, and I know it seems like super small. So when I first started my journey, I used to get up at 3:45 in the morning every day, and that was to prove to myself that, okay, you can do this. It was crazy. Yes, you are tired by noon every day, but it's not negotiable. You got to get up. You got to get to it. You don't have a choice. We have to go to work. We have to work out. We have to drink our water. We have to take care of our kids. We have to take care of my wife. Have to take care of.
And why don't we have a choice there for people who think they do?
Oh man, I think that's based off individual, and I say that because, as you guys know, being very successful, it's the willpower. If you don't, I don't care how many people come across your desk and say they I want this, but if they don't physically show up every day and put the effort in, it doesn't matter how much you push them. Their choice, they made their bed. You make your bed, you lay in it. If you don't want to be a high thriving entrepreneur, then you won't be one if you tell yourself that. But if you tell yourself, like, one day I know I'm gonna be a millionaire, I'm just waiting on the time, and I have to put the work in. I have to prepare myself to get there, and I do want to be the grandfather on the wall that everybody looks up to and say, hey, he set on this journey, tired, lonely, and he did this for our family, so the Henry legacy can continue to live through TNT Fitness as a platform. And that's what I was saying earlier. TNT Fitness was something that I want people to be able to stand on. And I can show that no matter where you're at in life, you can make something of yourself. And you don't have a choice. If you really want it, you don't have a choice. But if you do, then you gotta got to go for it. Got to get up. My coaches, I remember back in the day, got to get your ass up and get to it. That's it. It's not a secret. It's not a secret sauce that you can just mix up. It really it comes down to self and how bad you want it.
Is it one day or is it day one on your goals? You know what I mean? Like,
yes, sir. It's
one of my all-time favorite phrases, because it's just when someone says something they want to do, it's all right. Well, what's keeping you from doing that today?
Yep.
Tomorrow. Oh, there's this vacation, or I want to, I got this coming up, this event that I want to, be off the rails on at this event. It's not going to be as convenient. Yeah. Is it ever going to be more convenient? You know what I mean? Is it, no. And so, just sometimes just, answering people in a way that brings it back to themselves.
Yeah.
And, letting them buy their own stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Or are you going to challenge them a little bit? And so, I think we all in here choose to be that person that challenges the friend group a little bit on just saying like, hey, are you buying your own BS right there?
Yeah. And
so, no, man, I just appreciate that about you a ton.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys, man. And last thing we just implemented into the business, a meal prep company. So Nourished by TNT Fitness.
Very cool, man.
And that's ran by the wife for 3.5 years. When you go out and build something, it takes time. And I was trying to figure out what TNT Fitness was missing when I hear clients are struggling, and they're generally struggling with food. I work with high thriving professionals. No matter how big or small, they don't have the time to meal prep their meals. And in a week, since we have created a soft launch, I've been able to make 6 orders. And just back to what we talked about earlier, sitting down and writing it out. What makes sense? Do I love being a trainer? Of course. But do I love helping solve a real, true problem? As we know in America, it's probably one of the biggest issues currently is nutrition and diet. How do I eat? What do I eat? How much water do I drink? And it's a problem that I want to solve as soon as possible. Whether I train or don't train anymore, I know people need meals, good meals. A wife can cook. I'm not trying to be biased. She can cook. And people want good tasting food too. As you know, eating clean isn't always the funnest thing to do, especially if it's not made right or chicken's bland or whatever the case may be. But we want to make good food that people can come back and continue to get, that tastes good and it's still healthy. That's the fastest way to lose weight, is to change your eating habits, drink more water. It's never just the gym. It's really always the small details and what you do on a daily basis and your habits. Creating better habits helps you lose body fat and weight before you just go tear yourself up in the gym any day.
That's big too. And I love that it's one touch point, right? Mm-hmm. So your clients can buy, you can say, hey, this is what we need to be doing as far as diet goes. If they're having a hard time with getting those meals in, which we all know that, that's a main excuse. Yep. I just don't have time to do that. Like, it's hard for me to get in that much protein, yada, yada, yada. Yep. And so having a quick, easy, solve for that problem is such a big thing. And it's also, food's one of those things where it's kind of, people can be weird about it, right? Mm-hmm. If they don't know where it's coming from, they're like, I don't know, but you're already their trainer. You already have the trust built. Mm-hmm. They already have, they're already looking to you to help make a big change. And I think that fits in perfectly, man.
Yeah. And the cool thing is I can speak to it. I mean, I still have that 270 guy down there. I would love to tear up some pizza and burgers all day. But as we get into the detail of it all, that digestive system, how food breaks down, certain foods don't agree with people's stomach. And then that's what I want to be able to teach. Just because you're eating certain foods, even healthy foods, they don't always agree with people's stomach. Listen to your gut. Listen to your body. How's it responding? Some people can't eat certain foods. So then you're able to come back and tell me, okay, hey, that bothered my stomach a little bit. Okay, what'd you eat? Let's switch it up. And just being able to make the story relatable. I understand how hard it is to lose weight. I understand that it takes some time, and being able to show people you're not by yourself. Back to your question earlier, like, what did it take? It took the willpower to change, the one to do, and change my eating palate, because that's a whole different conversation. Going from eating crappy food to eating healthy is like the hardest thing in the world. Not picking up a dumbbell, not stepping foot in the gym, but what do you eat before the gym? What do you eat after the gym? Do you have your proper supplements? did you have enough fuel or energy for the workouts you're looking to do? It's like a whole separate world with food and nutrition versus, okay, hey, I'm just want to come to you and get in shape for 30 days. By the time I go to Mexico, it's like, I can't get you to lose 20 pounds, 25 pounds that fast. I can get you going to that journey and get you to create better habits. So now you're eating healthy. And when you go to Mexico, you know, I can't just destroy it all. You have established 30 days of good habits to understand that when I go to Mexico, I may pre-pack my protein. I do it all the time. When I travel, I carry little baggies with me with pre-packed protein and creatine in there for how many days I'm going to be gone. So I know those days I got a guaranteed 35 grams or 40 grams of protein in that day. And then I just put a piece of fruit with it. So now you have your carbohydrates too. So just learn to teach people how to make it simple and easy for their lifestyle and not what social media tells you, because it's just two separate worlds.
Preparedness, man. Yeah, convenience equals consistency, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, this is an absurd question to ask you in this moment.
Yeah.
Solely. Come on, bro. All right.
Hey, the real question is, so you got a 3-year-old, right?
Yep.
Is that your boy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Titan. Mm-hmm.
Tell me that if he was sitting in here right now, he would be just as fidgety.
It would not work. I probably would have to walk out.
Oh, I did have to walk out for a second.
I'll say Sully's being super well behaved.
Yeah, it's
considering the circumstances, he's doing the best he can do.
Yeah. They
Shout
do,
out Sullivan.
Yeah, they do the best they can do, man.
Yeah.
And I was reading just a little silly story the other day on Instagram about young boys. They don't sit down.
No,
None. I mean,
this is the most he's sat in forever.
Yep. Giving them
all the space in the room just to run amok, man. They need to. They need to.
Yep.
I got one last question before we ask all of our guests, and that is simple. Let's talk to 270 Durias right now, and that is, you got one. Thanks, Sully. We got one spot that you can bring someone to if they're visiting Kansas City for barbecue. Where do you take them?
For barbecue. Wow, that's a tough question because I do not want to hurt your feelings.
No feelings are getting hurt here.
And have not been a big barbecue fan since I've been in Kansas City. Now, I've tried some between Gates, Q39, and I'm going to have to go with Gates. From
Gates over Q39.
Rare answer.
A rare answer.
Yeah, but that's why I opened up with the honesty of I'm probably not the best person to talk to about good or bad barbecue. To me, it's just barbecue because I don't eat it enough to.
Well, let's talk about something you like to eat a lot. What's the spot?
Oh man, I'm a
post show. If you were,
I'm a cheeseburger guy, man. Double cheeseburger, everything.
What's the spot?
Surprisingly, Red Robin.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if most.
That's what they do, man. They're famous. Cool. They're famous for their burgers. And the onion ring and the onion ring tower.
First time I ever had an egg on a burger.
The onion ring tower?
Yeah.
I used to have like 3 roommates that worked at Red Robin at the same time, dude. Like I've had more Red Robin than I've ever needed to.
Yeah, we were there about a week ago.
Endless fries.
Yep. They were advertising, and I looked at the wife. I said, maybe on the day that I didn't have my meals prior, I probably could tear that up. But I looked at it, I was like, I can't do that right now.
Yeah, that's a lot of hate yourself after that
meal.
There's a whole lot of needing to get horizontal after that meal.
It puts you down. That's why I choose to eat it.
It's heavy as all get out.
Yeah, that's why I choose to eat it close to my son's bedtime. Because I know once he goes to bed, we're all good. My daughter's 7. She's independent. She doesn't want us to bother anyway. But yeah, man, Red Robin. I just tried their barbecue whiskey burger.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm sure that's awesome.
And that has become my fan favorite. So shout out to Red Robin.
Shout out, man.
Shout out to Red Robin.
They do a good job for the chains, man. They do a good job. So we appreciate your time. Please tell our listeners where they can best find you, Durias.
You can find me on Instagram at Mr. TNT Fit, and that's primarily what I use as far as socials. I do the TikTok thing, but not
no
really.
Underscore, no hyphens, no nothing, y'all. Just Mr. TNT
Mr.
Fit.
TNT Fit.
Nice and easy.
And just some good things coming, man. Just a 12-week program. Any kind of trainers out there looking to get into the game and need some help, they can find me there. And, of course, anybody that's looking to get in shape, man, to become more mobile and feel better.
And they want some food, they can contact you for that, too.
Yep. And then if you want to add some food to the service, we most definitely will take care of you there. And it is gluten-free, too. I know some people can't eat gluten, so that's a huge topic. So, yeah, gluten-free food. We're just here to service the community, man, help people feel better and look better.
Cool. Cool, man.
Very
We really
cool,
appreciate
man.
your time.
I
Thank you for
appreciate
taking
you
the
guys.
time
Thank you,
coming
man.
out today.
Sir.
And man, we support you. Let us know how we can help, and hope everybody here listens in and leans in because you had a lot of wisdom today. So we appreciate it.
Most definitely. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.